Houthis challenge Israeli Air Force. Can you guess which move turned the Red Sea into one of the most dangerous waterways on Earth practically overnight? The Houthis' plan seemed calculated, but Israel's counterstrike has flipped the script entirely. Stick around to uncover how this deadly chess game escalated so rapidly. Why would the Houthis, a rebel group operating out of Yemen, choose to challenge the might of one of the most advanced air forces in the world? The answer lies in a mix of ideological ambition, calculated timing, and regional dynamics. The Houthis' leadership has long portrayed their movement as part of a broader resistance against perceived Western-backed aggression in the region. Their declaration of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza wasn't just symbolic. It was designed to align them more visibly with other anti-Israel actors, particularly Iran, which has heavily supported their military operations. In early November, the Houthis escalated their rhetoric into action with a series of ballistic missile launches targeting not only Israeli territory, but also vital international shipping routes in the Red Sea. Their aim was clear: to disrupt trade, create panic, and extend the battlefield beyond the immediate Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The timing couldn't have been more deliberate, as the region was already on edge. While Gaza and southern Israel dominated international headlines, the Houthis saw an opportunity to project influence and shift attention toward Yemen. This wasn't a reckless gamble, it was a strategic move to leverage their perceived role as a regional power broker. Several missiles were aimed near high-profile sites, including one that came alarmingly close to Ben Gurion Airport, Israel's primary international gateway. The near hit caused significant disruption, with flights delayed and diverted as air traffic officials scrambled to assess the situation. For Israelis accustomed to Iron Dome intercepting threats well before they approach sensitive areas, this moment injected fresh chaos and fear. The Houthis didn't stop there. Their leaders issued bold warnings, urging international airlines to cease operations over Israel. They even went so far as to suggest an air blockade of Israel. That tactic amplified their challenge far beyond Yemen's borders. The scope of Houthis' operations suggests careful coordination with their Iranian allies. Observers have noted overlapping strategies between Houthi actions and Iranian military maneuvers in the region. Iran has long provided the Houthis with advanced weaponry, including missiles capable of reaching targets hundreds of miles away. The missile launches reflected this capability, but they also demonstrated something more: synchronization within a broader network of anti-Israel forces. In fact, many analysts have pointed to Yahya Sarri's statements praising the strikes as a direct effort to make Israelis feel the fear that Palestinians face daily. Furthermore, Houthi-affiliated journalist Hussein al-Bukaiti argued that these attacks were a necessary response to Tel Aviv's airstrikes in Gaza, framing their actions as part of a moral duty. Targeting the Red Sea was another prominent piece of their strategy, an extension of their operation designed to strike where it hurts: global trade. Yemen's location along the Bab el-Mandeb Strait gives the Houthis a unique ability to threaten a critical choke point for international shipping. In the days following their missile launches, reports surfaced of attempted strikes on vessels passing through the area, adding to concerns about maritime security. By creating such broad disruption, the Houthis seemed intent on forcing international powers to pay attention, not just to their cause, but to their power to destabilize economic and security interests. Their provocations, however, went beyond military symbolism or mere rhetoric. The coordination with Iran highlighted broader regional ambitions. Intelligence reports have pointed to Iran's ongoing transfer of military expertise and equipment to the Houthis, turning them into a proxy force capable of challenging regional powers. This wasn't the first time the Houthis worked in concert with Iran, but their recent moves showed a boldness that hadn't been seen before. It demonstrated that the Houthis were not acting in isolation, but as part of a calculated push to expand conflict zones involving Israel. And yet, for all the fear and chaos these attacks created, the question loomed large: How would Israel respond? The Israeli Air Force is known for its precision and decisiveness, capable of reaching targets across the Middle East. It was almost inevitable that the Houthis' challenge wouldn't go unanswered. Less than 24 hours after the missile strikes near Ben Gurion and disruptions in the Red Sea, Israeli fighter jets were spotted over Yemen, striking key military sites including Sana'a International Airport. The airport, a critical lifeline for civilian aid and military logistics, was reported to be severely damaged. Initial reports spoke of the runways being rendered unusable and significant collateral damage in surrounding areas. The decision to target the airport was no coincidence. Israeli military officials later claimed the site had been used for storing and transferring weapons supplied by Iran. This narrative positioned the strikes not just as retaliation, but as a broader effort to cut off supply lines. Despite this justification, the response drew criticism from humanitarian groups who warned that such actions risk worsening already dire conditions in Yemen. Mohammed Ali al-Houthi, a senior Houthi leader, dismissed these claims, announcing instead that further escalation was inevitable and that Yemen's skies would remain contested. These moves, far from isolating the incident to Israeli-Houthi tensions, risk setting the stage for a much broader conflict. By coordinating with Iran and targeting Israel directly, the Houthis effectively pulled themselves into a larger web of Middle Eastern power struggles. Critics have noted the potential involvement of U.S. forces stationed in the region, as well as the likelihood of Saudi Arabia and the UAE seeking to take advantage of the situation to justify further strikes against Houthi-held areas in Yemen. Houthis may have hoped their bold stance would enhance their position on the world stage, but the outcome has been anything but simple. Their actions have now opened a door to widespread instability, but regional actors positioning themselves for what could become a far more explosive confrontation. The Houthis took the bold step of firing missiles toward Israel and disrupting international shipping lanes. The Israeli response was swift and unforgiving. Just hours after Houthi missiles endangered commercial flights near Ben Gurion Airport, Israeli fighter jets struck the Houthis where it hurts most, Sana'a International Airport. The damage was catastrophic. According to airport sources cited by Reuters, runways were rendered completely inoperable. Buildings sustained irreparable damage, and critical infrastructure like the departures terminal was left in ruins. Reports also indicated that a nearby military airbase, allegedly linked to Houthi operations, was hit during the raid, further amplifying the toll. For a region already living on the edge, this marked a dramatic escalation in both the intensity and geographic scope of the conflict. The Israel Defense Forces justified these airstrikes by emphasizing their strategic intent. According to the IDF, Sana'a International Airport had become more than just a civilian facility. It was allegedly repurposed for transferring weapons and operatives with direct ties to Iranian support. Electricity infrastructure and even a cement factory in northern Sana'a were also targeted in the operation. Also, the Israel actions that Israel framed as necessary to cripple the Houthis' ability to further escalate aggression. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made Israel's intentions clear, stating, "Whoever attacks Israel bears responsibility for his own blood." His words carried a pointed message. Israel would not only retaliate, but would decide the terms and scale of its response. Meanwhile, the events in Israel and Yemen rippled far beyond their borders. By targeting such critical Houthi assets, Israel not only heightened its own state of vigilance, but also alarmed other regional powers. The involvement of weapons allegedly shipped from Iran highlighted the proxy-like nature of the Houthis' capabilities. This raised fears that the Houthis were not acting in isolation but as an extension of broader Iranian ambitions to expand influence through regional destabilization. Israel's counter-strikes, while devastating on the ground, risked pulling the conflict into dangerous new territory. It wasn't just Yemen or Israel caught in this evolving tension. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both previously targeted by Houthi missiles and drone strikes, began re-collaborating their involvement. Possibility of a wider regional war loomed large. The Houthis, despite their limited resources compared to Israel, had already demonstrated their ability to create chaos far beyond Yemen's borders. This newfound boldness could inspire other regional factions to escalate conflicts with Israel or U.S. interests stationed in the Gulf. The role of American military bases, already on alert after regional deployments, also became a significant concern. Should Yemeni operations expand to target U.S. assets or involve Gulf allies, the conflict could become a full-blown regional crisis with unmanageable consequences. Netanyahu's vow of very strong action reflected Israel's recognition of these broader stakes. This was not just about retaliating to missile strikes near Tel Aviv, but about ensuring that similar threats from other fronts, be they from Lebanon, Syria, or Yemen, would not materialize. The technical failure that allowed a missile to hit near Ben Gurion Airport had escalated tensions significantly. For ordinary Israelis, the incident shattered the sense of safety that advanced defense systems like Iron Dome are designed to provide. The political and psychological impact of that moment could not be overstated. But the Houthis' actions and Israel's response have contributed to something far larger than the immediate exchange of violence. They have highlighted the precarious balance of power in the Middle East, where any single misstep risks cascading into regional instability. But the Houthis' vow of continued retaliation and Israel's unyielding stance, questions remain. Would Saudi Arabia or the UAE further intervene? Could U.S. forces in the region be drawn into direct confrontations? What would Iran's next move be? These unanswered questions aren't just about Yemen or Israel's security. They're part of a larger chessboard that has for decades been redefined by alliances, rivalries, and unresolved disputes. The Houthis' bold campaign against Israel was meant to project an image of power and solidarity with Gaza, but its aftermath reverberates far beyond Yemen. Israel's decisive airstrikes on key Houthi targets, including Sana'a International Airport, have devastated vital infrastructure while intensifying fears of a larger regional war. It began as missile launches toward Ben Gurion Airport and Red Sea shipping lanes has dragged Iran, Saudi Arabia, and potentially the United States closer to a conflict. With regional alliances hanging in the balance, the Middle East faces an uncertain and precarious future. How far will these escalating tensions ultimately go?